Okay, today I've got some show and tell items here. What this video is about is creating a ball python rack for the hatchlings based on a 6-quart sterilite tub like this. So this one came out of my already existing rack that I built. I've got 2 layers for it. I'm going to build 3 more today. This little guy is a 3 gene banana cinnamon lesser. Really nice pattern and color. Good little guy. He's already eaten once. So here's how his tub's set up. I've got a water dish on one side, paper towels in there. He's eaten. That was the day he ate. So this is the heat strip that provides heat, the hot spot for the snake, so he can regulate his own temperature. And he does that by getting close to it or moving farther away. And your ambient temperature should be 78 to 80 degrees roughly in the snake room, and I keep mine around 78 just for my own regulating my temperature. And but anyway, so they seem to thrive pretty well in that condition. And the way I designed this is a modular stacking system with room for, in this one I hold 4 tubs, but my new design I'm going to have 5, because for another, this one's 36 inches wide. At 42 inches it can hold 5, and they're spaced in there nicely, and it utilizes the size of your standard lumber 4x8 sheets a little bit better. So I based this design around the tub, the 6-quart tub, and around the angle on the back. The manufacturer of this heat strip recommends using back heat for the small tub, just because, being that there's only so much space in there, if you've got heat on the bottom, which is what I use in my standard ball python rack for my adults, because when you got a 6-inch heat strip along the back, there's plenty of room for them to get in there and regulate their temperature. They don't have to, be hot. So in the baby tub, if you had half the tub taken up with heat strip, doesn't give the snake a lot of options. So I went with that recommendation from the manufacturer and built a modular system that has a 9-degree angle on the back, so only the back is warm, and that way the snake can cuddle up against the back, which is what he was. When I pulled him out of the rack, the whole back was nice and warm, and he was cuddled up against the back side of it, so it works perfectly. And I just used my Makita saw, and I'm going to go ahead and cut some lumber here in just a second. And this piece has already been cut to 3 feet, and that's the size of my current rack. I am going to upgrade to a 42-inch one, and that's my next project. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the first one at regular speed, and then I'll finish out the others in time lapse. But I'm going to cut that 9-degree angle right now at 11 3/4 inches is what I've figured out using the sterilite tubs as my guide, so that they fit perfectly on there. So 11 3/4 is the long side, so the angle comes down this way. So I'll be turning the saw around and cutting this direction. So this is my top at 11 3/4. I mark both sides. Get some stronger glasses. Those are not quite strong enough. Okay, 11 3/4. 11 3/4 over here. All right, we're marked. I've already been using my PowerTech track saw guide quite a bit. It works great. Let's bring it back here. saw. So you noticed I have a table to catch the one that's getting cut off. And this is supported right here. The only drawback of this is I'm cutting, the saw is on the side that's being cut, but that's because I have to get the angle correct here. Okay, we look good. Let's try it. I think I'll slide this piece under here to catch. Okay. Perfect angle, perfect cut there. So the way that works is this piece sets down like this, and this one's one I'd cut before. It already has an angle cut on it, which is not necessary. I just did it just so that it could be flat on the bottom, and that's the perfect setup for those tubs. That gives you this 9-degree angle right here. The tub sits in here, comes flush to the front, and there's room for the lid to overlap right here. So the heat strip goes on this. I laminate this with vinyl, so you'll see that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of these and put it on time lapse. Okay, so now I'm setting up to cut the end pieces that support everything. This is my template. Originally, when I first designed the rack, I was going to make the sides thick and do posts here and drill like a dowel in here and then drill a hole in the other side so that they could stack like Legos. But then my brother, who does a lot of 3D printing, and I came up with a better solution that doesn't require as much woodwork, which this is a lot of time consuming, painstaking woodwork to set that up so they all fit perfectly. Instead, he printed like an I-beam piece to stack, and you'll see that later when I show the completed rack. So it worked out perfectly, and it's way easier for me. He just sets up the printer and lets it go. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to cut these. This is 6.5 by 14. So I need 6 of those for 3 racks, 1 for each side. So I'm going to do that on time lapse. Okay, that's all the pieces cut out for three sections of ball pit python racks. Bottom, so each section has 1 of these. Let's see, where's my angle? On that side, and my angle's over here. Basically, this sits like this. I usually use a spacer when I'm assembling these here and here. And so this assembles to the bottom of this, and then you got 1 end piece on each, and those are attached right up to the front. So that's the way that goes together. All right, so we've got enough pieces to build 3. But first, we laminate these bottom sheets. Coming up next. Okay, next step, what I'm going to do in the meantime before I start laminating is put a finish on these end pieces. I I use this Kills interior primer. It seals pretty well. It has like a flat satinish finish, and I like the way it looks and coats the wood, rather than laminating all these pieces too. And as you can see, I have the hub on here that I was talking about that my brother 3D prints, and it holds them together pretty good. We made a looser version also, but I like this tight version. So it's like an I-beam, as you can see from the end of it, but let me get a close-up of it. So that's the design. Flat on this end so it can't slide back and forth, and then I-beam shape to hold both layers. So you can stack these. You can make as many levels as you want, and I put a heat strip on each one with a separate cord, and then you can use a plug strip to plug into your thermostat, so you can run however many shelves you put. You can. The beauty of it is you can build as you go and add one or two shelves at a time, whatever you need to house all your babies, hatchlings. And anyway, so what I like to do, since I use this kind of system, you could actually stack these together and then put a wood strip on here to glue, either screw it down or glue it on one side so that it actually can still stack that way. Whatever you want to do, if you don't have access to 3D printing, but I like the way this works out for me. So what I do is, before I paint these, I go ahead and take my sander and take the corners off of all of them so that they stack a little bit easier. And he did make me some looser fitting ones too, so I'm going to do some experimenting, get the exact size I need for this. But you also have to cut these all the same size, and the way I do that is cut the width on them all in one sheet, and then I cut strips off of that so every one of them is exactly the same. So that's pretty important if you're going to stack them. All right, so I'll time lapse the sanding and painting process right quick. So next step, while I'm waiting for the side pieces to dry, I set this up. I put cardboard down here. We're going to glue these laminate strips onto the front. It's Formica vinyl. Anyway, this gets glued onto the front of here first, and then I have a bigger sheet to glue on the top side. But you want to do this side first, and then I'll come in with a router and route it all so it's flush all the way around. And then the top edge will cover that. It'll overlap it a little bit, and I route it then. And that gives you a perfect seamless thing where you won't catch this front piece when you're sliding the tubs in and out. So it makes that's just the way it's done. Something I learned at work. And most of this material is discontinued colors or stuff that was left over at work off of scraps and stuff. And that's what I've been using for all my racks. Most people, it's kind of expensive just to buy it. But you can also just paint these if you want to, and it'll work fine that way. This is just really durable, and it's waterproof. This is contact cement. This is what we used to stick this stuff on. At work, they have a sprayer to spray it on there, and for the application, works just as well putting it on by brush. So just buy some cheap dollar brushes for this process. So you want to coat that front edge. Doesn't matter if you go over and get a little messy. Just want to make sure you get a nice even coat, not too clumped up anywhere. Make sure you get those edges. You can go back if after it's dried a piece pops up, an edge piece or something, you can glue it back down, just add some more. The key to using this contact cement though is you actually allow it to dry. You coat both sides, so I'm going to coat this side here. And these are cut to overlap a little bit, so then I route them down perfectly afterwards. You can use lacquer thinner to clean this stuff up after the fact. If it gets on your surfaces that you don't want, you just use lacquer thinner. That's why I put cardboard boxes here. I don't want to get it on my work tables or any of the extra area. So that's one. It takes about 15 minutes for this to dry, and that's when you go ahead and apply it. But you got to be careful because once you put it on there, it does not want to move. So you don't want to make a mistake when you're putting it, attaching it on. Make sure you got it lined up right. And these little strips are a little bit, you can have a little bit of freedom to move it a little bit, but not much. That's that. Now this piece. They're a little bit curled up. They were kind of sitting out in the sun over there in the scrap pile. They still work fine. This will be, I'll only be able to do 2 with the blue. Then I'm gonna have to change colors on the next shelf because I don't have any more blue after this. I've used a lot of it in my bigger racks. Okay, those 2 are ready. Let's close this back up. And I can use this brush for a day because it kind of melts it back when it'll dry up on here, but it'll melt it when you start using glue again. So now we wait and 15 minutes or so, and then we'll do the glue on. Okay, dry to the touch, not got a little bit of tack to it, but ready to adhere. So you want it to stick over on all edges so your router can do the finish work. So let's fold it up like that. Make sure especially that it sticks up on the top. Be careful if you're gonna use this method. Be careful running your finger on the edge of these pieces of Formica. Get off me, bug. Can easily slice you. The edges can be sharp. Okay, there's one. Numero dos. You can do this by feel also, feeling, make sure that you're sticking up on all sides. Oh, bug came back. Get away. I mean, if you see an area that bumps up a little bit later, after, even longer after it's dried, you can push it down and it usually re-stick. But once it sticks, this stuff is pretty tough. It was used for cabinets and stuff back in the day. A long time ago. We use better stuff now, Corian and things like that. But still, makes a nice finish. Okay. Now while I get the router set up, then I'll go ahead and cut the video right here. Okay, I set up a clamp on this so I can hold it upright because I need to route it from the top like this in a circle. So what I'm using is called a follow bit, which has a blade. Let me roll this down right quick. It's up, down. Okay. So it has a blade right here, and then it has a bearing that it rides on, and so the bearing is exactly the same diameter as what the widest point on the blade is. So whatever this bearing rolls on, that's what this will cut the shape of. So I just leave a little bit of blade showing like that, about that much, just enough to cut the laminate, and then it'll be rolling around the side of the board. And it's set on high speed. Little Makita finish router. You can start anywhere. That's it. Still got some clumpy glue and stuff that you can remove with the lacquer thinner, but overall it's smooth and it fits perfectly to the edge of the board and the underframe. You can see it. There it is. Smooth top and bottom. And the other piece will go on top of this. That'll be done next. I'm going to go ahead and route that other one. I'm not going to do it on video though. I've got both of these done with the front edge piece, so now I'm going to cut a piece of the larger sheet, and this generally comes in like 4 by 8 foot sheets, so it's a little tricky to work with because it's so wobbly and flimsy, but I had this coiled up so it has a bit of a curve to it. What you want to do to set up for your finish router is leave about a 1/4 inch overlap, because the router can eat that up. It'll eat more than that, but that's a good amount to do. So I'm just kind of doing a rough mark where I want to cut it. And that gives me plenty of overlap. Okay. Cut this piece down so it's just got the right amount of overlap on it. And I put my paintbrush somewhere, and I don't know where. Okay, got it all glued up. Didn't videotape it because my phone was having storage issues, and we'll see how long with this video it takes. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and route this. Got some glue on here. Yeah, we do. So it was not just glue on the bit, even though there was some on there. The bit was actually coming out, and so that was potentially dangerous. But anyway, I got it tightened up and back in place. Let's see how it does. This has been laminated on the front and on the top. The angle is cut on this one here and then on the back. So now it's just a matter of pre-drilling. Make sure these edges are perfectly aligned, which they are. I like to pre-drill because working on a narrow material like this, you don't want to come out the bottom or top accidentally with your drill screw. Make sure you get the right angle. Drill them one at a time, that way you don't actually have any movement after you get one in. There we go, that's one. The other side, get the height right. Okay, so now we have that perfect angle there. Do one in the middle right quick. It's got a little bow to it that'll pull right in. The middle. Perfect. I'll put two more in there, but for now I just want to show the layout of that angle. Whoa. Lids are slippery. Here's the tub. The lid on it. Perfect fit. There's room for the lid, and the lid can snap on perfectly. So with the other one on top, the next stacked level, where's the white pieces? Right over here. So next I'm going to attach these onto the side. And so these will be set. I have a little jig that I use to basically set this on top of the spacer. I'm going to go put the other two screws in, and then I'll show the side attachment. Okay, so I jumped the gun a little bit saying I was going to put the sides on. The sides don't go on yet. First, you need to set up the heat strip. And what I like to do first is cut a notch for the extension cord, or the cord that goes on the heat tape. Right here, I use my router just to make a small notch in there for the cord to go through. So I'm going to do that now. Better plug it in. Doesn't work without electricity. Okay. Mess everywhere. But anyway, so I got a nice little notch in there for the cord to go through. So the cord will attach with these two ends onto the strip, and we got plenty of room for that. Okay, now. Okay, I've assembled everything needed to do the next step, which is attach the heat strip. Well, first of all, get electricity to the heat strip. Here's my stapler. That's the only thing that's needed now. Okay, so you got a hole puncher, these little connectors that you get at Reptile Basics. You can get the pre-made cords at whatever length, or you can, and these already have ends on them. This is an insulation pad, which I'll show you how that gets used. And here's the heat strip, which you cut to length. So stretch that out, and then I cut it off right there. All right, put my scissors. I like to cut it just a little bit short. Tubs don't get all the way to the side anyway, just so the cord has room to wrap around better. I usually pick in between one of the heat bars. I don't know that it makes a difference. And then when you staple this on to the back wood here, you have to stay on the clear strip. You don't want to staple in here or staple in any of these heat pieces because that's where the electricity flows through. You don't want to ground it out somehow. So always stay in the clear section. And that looks like perfect length. Next step, take a knife or something, and this is a little bit of a tricky part, but you go in here and you separate. There's an insulation. You see how my knife blade went in there? That is where you make your attachment. First, hole puncher. Hopefully I'm in the camera here. Hole puncher, come in about, you can come in any length, but we go about there. And here. Try to stay kind of centered in the copper. Give you a better connection. Then back to the other stage that I was doing, you do that, separate it. Then you're able to take this wire end and stick it in that slot where you had your knife, if you can get it to go, if your fingers work correctly. And sometimes I leave the knife in there so that there it goes. Okay, so then you push it in there and then it lines up with your hole there. Next step, I'll show you. I have to take the phone over to the anvil. So I grab these pieces, one of each. Come over here to my forged in fire area. See, I'll set the one down that's got the little, it's like the female end. Oops, nope, wrong. Here's the female end. So I set that one down. Then, now would be a good time to have a cameraman. It's not quite enough hands. I did it though. Okay, so I pushed that through. All right, now let me set the phone over here for a second while I get the other piece on there. Then I put this piece on top of that, like so. Next, it's hammer time. So I am going to have to put the phone down to use a hammer. I don't think I can set it up. Okay, so I gave it a few taps with the hammer. It flattens it out real nice. Makes a good solid electrical connection there. So that's all you have to do. Do it on both sides, and then you're ready. Okay, next step. I use this, it's HVAC tape for AC stuff, and it's got a layer you peel off, and it's like foil tape. It's all metal. One of the warnings they give you on the heat strip is not to cover the copper with that either, just because it can build up excess heat. So I just make a point of staying in the clear zone, and then I fold it over the back. It actually holds it in place really nicely. So we want to just cut the length first, and you can be a little short if you want. It's just this is just adds extra. I forgot a step. I forgot to put my insulation pads on here. So I can do that after the fact, luckily, before I tape it. So these little pads, they're like rubberized material, but they also insulate those ends where I just attached. I should have done before I stapled it, but I can get in there, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, for the bottom one, absolutely. Just fold around all of that stuff. Let it down, and this is super sticky stuff, so once it sticks to itself, you're pretty done. So that's a great insulation job right there. This one, I have to take that last staple off before I build it. It's too tight. So, not to get ahead of yourself like I do often. Okay, staples out. Now I got room to work. Take the other insulation pad off. Put it in there. Right there. Fold it over. These things are big enough to where they cover a pretty big area, so now you're completely insulated there. No problem with that. Okay, now I can cut my tape off. get started, but luckily I got a corner going over here. And be careful not to go too crazy peeling all this right away because it's ultra sticky and sometimes tricky to work with. So you want to just line yourself up real nice here. Stay off of the copper side. I get pretty close to it, but as long as you're over it, you're fine. As long as it's catching that edge of the clear section of tape, of heat tape, you're good. What I usually do is do it a little at a time so your tape doesn't get all wrinkly looking and it looks like NASA did it. Everything NASA does has foil stuff on it like this. And then over the top, nice and square, and then go from the center out. Anybody that's done craft projects knows to do it this way. And that way you avoid all the wrinkles. Or at least most of them. And what you'll see a lot of HVAC guys do when they're doing something like this with the HVAC is take their credit card out and rub it along the back, and it gives you a really flat finish. So I got a couple of little tiny wrinkles in there, but they flatten out really well. Use your back of your fingernail. And this stuff sticks really good and stays really good. Impervious to a lot of things. So anyway, there's the finished look of the, you don't see any bare wood anymore, and then when I get the sides on there, then it'll be white. The back will be a little bit of bare wood, but almost there. Okay, now both connections are made. Nice. They don't, make sure they don't wiggle around because that means you got a loose connection. If you pop it with a hammer, I found that works better than using a pliers, which is what they use. I think they sell a pliers that does these, but hammer works great. I haven't had any problems with that. So I like to lift it up a little bit off the bottom and kind of center it because the stapler has a hard time getting that close, and I don't want to staple the copper. So first staple in, and it lines up really good. I'll put another one in the bottom before I start attaching any of the tops. Now, the top. If you do end up puncturing the copper, just remove that staple and shoot it again so you don't end up causing any possible issues. Plus you could also then run your finger across it and shock yourself if you ground it out. So you want to make sure you're in the clear area. However, most of these staples are going to be covered with my aluminum HVAC tape. Pretty good. Not perfect, but it's good. Okay, so that fits in the slot really nicely. Put one more at the top here. Torn between doing that, but I will do it. There we go. All right. That's it for that stage. Let me go get the tape. Okay, we're ready for the final step. So this is a piece of 3/4 inch board. You can use whatever you have just for a spacer. I use that because that's the height that it ends up being off the ground, and that sets up your side pieces. Then you pick your side, and you set it here, and I always put mine flush with the front. Got a little bit of rounding going on here on this thing. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Then we drill, and my box is screwed up. I'm ready to go with one of those. Okay, so eyeball it so you don't miss your drill spot. Beautiful. I'm gonna put one up here at the top. Get your line. Screw. After building my original ball python racks with just cheap whatever plywood was a good price, I opted for getting the good stuff that's like $37 a sheet, because it's really nicely finished. You don't have a lot of voids in here. It's flat. I mean, if it does have a bow, it's super slight. This actually takes care of any bowing, this angle that you've got put together. But just use the good stuff. It's for the difference in price of $7 to $10. It's completely worth it because you'll be cursing that other plywood and having to fill in all the voids and stuff. This stuff is really nice. So that's all I use now for these projects and for laminating too. So I'm going to put the other side on, and then we'll put it together. Okay, I set the other two racks that I already had made up on my coffee table, so you can see how they go together. And these are the hub pieces. We're still working on the fit of those. We've got some that fit loose, and then we have some tight ones. So we're trying. These are like super tight fit. Trying to figure the perfect medium. So anyway, also one other thing, when you're screwing this section on, make sure that your cord doesn't get pinched. It runs through your routed hole that you cut through here, so it doesn't get in a bind or get stuck or make this thing not go flush. So check that when you're putting that part together. So now we stack it together. I have those pulled forward a little bit so that'll stack a little bit easier. You just push it down on there. Push those pieces together, and then these slide really easily, so it actually just gets right in there. So there you have it. So that's 3 high. It's extremely stable. Tubs. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I dropped the lids outside, so we'll get those later. But anyway, there they are. So I peel the stickers off my sterilite tub. We're good to go. And then I set these. Actually are occupied. I'm calling this the Hatchling Hotel. So there's already babies in here. This guy's eaten twice already, so he's a good one, good eater. It's a cinnamon. Oh, little guy. So this little guy, he's in the hotel right now, waiting for his next meal, which will be about a week. A couple of them haven't eaten yet, but I've got to go up another couple of levels, 3 at least. 2. 1, I have materials to make 2 more, and that will cover all the babies that I have right now, and then I think I have 6 more on the way, and then some more getting ready to lay. So my next one, as you can see, this fits 4 with some space. If I added another 6 inches to this is 36. If I go to 42, I can add another tub and make them 5. So I think that would be a good size. This is, you can kind of make them conform to whatever you need, but you have to make them all the same size to stack together like that. So they're fairly modular, you can make them one at a time. So here for a closer look. There's the system. Looks very clean. You don't have to do the laminated finish here. You can actually paint that the same as you do the sides here and it'll be just fine. But if you have access to this, it makes a pretty nice finish. And there you go. And I imagine you could put a mount for casters on the bottom if you wanted it to roll around. And then I think I would want to see how tall you could get it and still have it be stable. I wouldn't want a whole hotel of hatchlings to come crashing down. But so far I think it could go 6 or 7 layers, no problem. Thanks for watching.